I'm Miss Watts.
And I'm Miss Tran, and today we will be studying a view of life, specifically the process of science.
This is Chapter 1, Section 4. The process of science pertains to the study of biology. Biology consists of many disciplines and areas of specialty because life has numerous aspects. Science differs from these other ways of knowing and learning because the scientific process uses the scientific method, a standard series of steps used in gaining new knowledge that is widely accepted among scientists. The steps of the scientific method are often applicable to other situations and begin with observation.
So the scientific method has 5 different steps. First, observation. New observations are made and previous data are studied. Then the hypothesis. Input from various sources is used to formulate a testable statement. Next is your experiment or observations. The hypothesis is tested by experiment or further observations. And then in your conclusion, the results are analyzed and the hypothesis is supported or rejected. And that brings you to the scientific theory, where many experiments and observations support a theory. Now we are going to individually explain each of the 5 steps.
Observation. Observation is a formal way of seeing what happens. Scientists use all of their senses while making observations. Scientists also extend the ability of their senses by using instruments. For example, the microscope enables us to see objects that could never be seen by the naked eye. Finally, scientists may expand their understanding even further by taking advantage of the knowledge and experiences of other scientists. For instance, they may look up past studies at the library or on the internet, or they may write or speak to others who are searching similar topics. Now moving on to hypothesis.
After making observations and gathering knowledge about a phenomenon, a scientist uses inductive reasoning to formulate a possible explanation. Inductive reasoning occurs whenever a person uses creative thinking to combine isolated facts into a cohesive whole. In some cases, chance alone may help a scientist arrive at an idea. We call such a possible explanation for a natural event a hypothesis. A hypothesis is not merely a guess, rather, it is an informed statement that can be tested in a manner suited to the processes of science. All of a scientist's past experiences, no matter what they might be, have the potential to influence the formation of a hypothesis, but a scientist considers only hypotheses that can be tested. Moral and religious beliefs, while very important in the lives of many people, differ between cultures and through time, and these may not be scientifically testable. And next is experiments, observations, and data.
Scientists often perform an experiment, which is a series of procedures to test a hypothesis. To determine how to test a hypothesis, a scientist uses deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning involves if-then logic. In designing the experiment, the scientist may make a prediction or an expected outcome based on knowledge of the factors in the experiment. The manner in which a scientist intends to conduct an experiment is called the experimental design. A good experimental design ensures that scientists are examining the contribution of a specific variable called the experimental variable to the observation. To ensure that the results will be meaningful, an experiment contains both test groups and a control group. A test group is exposed to the environmental variable, but the control group is not. If the control groups and the test groups show the same results, the experimenter knows that the hypothesis predicting a difference between them is not supported. In some cases, scientists may use the model as a representation of the actual object because altering the actual object may be physically impossible, very expensive, or morally questionable. The results of an experiment are referred to as the data. Data should be observable and objective rather than subjective. Mathematical data are often displayed in the form of a graph or table. Often these results include a standard deviation, a statistical analysis that is a measure of how much the data in the experiment varies. And now the next thing is the conclusion.
Scientists must analyze the data in order to reach a conclusion as to whether the hypothesis is supported or not. Because science progresses, the conclusion of one experiment can lead to the hypothesis for another experiment. Results that do not support one hypothesis can often help a scientist formulate another hypothesis to be tested. Scientists report their findings in scientific journals so that their methodology and data are available to other scientists for critique. Experiments and observations must be repeatable, that is, the reporting scientist and any scientist who repeats the experiment must get the same results, or else the data are suspect. Next is the scientific theory.
The ultimate goal of science is to understand the natural world in terms of scientific theories, which are concepts that join together well-supported and related hypotheses. In ordinary speech, the word theory refers to a speculative idea. In contrast, a scientific theory is supported by a broad range of observations, experiments, and data, often from a variety of disciplines. Some of the basic theories of biology are the cell theory, the homeostasis theory, gene theory, ecosystem theory, and the evolution theory. Some biologists refer to the principle of evolution, a term sometimes used for the theories that are generally accepted by an overwhelming number of scientists. The term law instead of principle is preferred by some.
Now we are going to provide an example of the scientific method. I'm going to provide the steps, and Miss Watts is going to provide the example. First, step 1, an observation is made.
Raspberries did not grow well this year.
Step 2, a problem is defined or a question is asked.
Why did raspberries not grow well this year?
Step 3, a hypothesis is proposed.
The raspberries did not grow well because we did not get much rain.
Step 4, a controlled experiment is set up.
Raspberry plants are placed in moderately lit areas, all receiving the same amount of light each day. Each plant will receive different amounts of water. The size of the berries will be recorded daily once the plants begin to produce berries.
Step 5, data is collected and analyzed.
The raspberry plants receiving 1 cup of water daily grew 1/2 inch in diameter, and those receiving 2 cups of water grew 3/4 inch in diameter.
Step 6, conclusions are made.
The raspberry plants receiving the most water grew the biggest. Therefore, the hypothesis is supported that this year's raspberries did not get enough rain.
Step 7, process is repeated to verify results.
Repeat experiment.
Now let's do a quick summary of the process of science. When studying the natural world, scientists use the scientific process. Observations, along with previous data, are used to formulate a hypothesis. New observations and/or experiments are carried out in order to test the hypothesis. A good experimental design includes an experimental variable and a control group. The experimental and observational results are analyzed, and the scientist comes to a conclusion as to whether the results support the hypothesis or do not support the hypothesis.
Several conclusions in a particular area may allow scientists to arrive at a theory, such as the cell theory, the gene theory, or the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution is a unifying concept of biology. Thanks for watching, and tune in to our next video.